Welcome to Independent Sources. I'm Garry Pierre-Pierre. First, there was a subprime mortgage mess and the subsequent credit crunch. Now, the $700 billion Wall Street bailout. And with food, fuel, and unemployment rates rising, everyone has been touched in some way by the financial crisis. On this edition of Independent Sources, we talk with some ethnic journalists about the impact of the economic downturn on their communities, how their publications are covering it, and what they are hearing from the presidential candidates. We looked at the high cost for small publications that go postal. And we profiled a journalist from Bangladesh who is on a mission to mobilize his community. But first, from real estate to restaurants to retail, the economic forecast is looking pretty dire for New York, the financial capital of the world. Joining me to discuss media coverage of the impact of the economy on their communities are three journalists. Lloyd Grant of the Kip Business Report, an online financial journal, Joe Wei of World Journal, a Chinese language daily, and Tomasz Deptula of Nowy Dziennik, a daily newspaper serving the Polish community. Welcome. Gentlemen, what effect has the economic downturn had in your community? Joe, what kind of impact has it had in the Chinese American community?
Well, in terms of the job opportunities, we cover our peoples in the financial sectors when the Lehman Brothers went down, and a lot of people out of jobs, either is accountants or MBA, and there's two kind of impacts in terms of those people. First of all, those people are still applying for the H-1 visa. They still try to get the working permission.
And the H-1 visa allows them to do what?
Allowed to work in this country legally, pay the tax for 3 years to 5 years. Then they have a kind of an extension for another 3 to 5 years. And after that, during this period, they can apply for their citizenship, for the green card, which is a permanent residence rights in this country, and eventually, legally to become a citizen here. However, it's going to take probably 5 years process to doing that. Without the H-1 visa, they just cannot work legally in this country, even they are quote of high-level education. They have to go home. They have to go back to China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, or from all the Southeast Asia country though. So this is the first tremendous impact. Then for those people, the other people is they're already legally work here as a citizen or as a permanent resident. They already bought a house. They already, buy all kind of consumer loans. That to them, this is a major impact. If they don't have enough saving, they probably will just go home like the rest of us, rest of the people. So this is in terms of the job markets, or for the graduate students, if they want to, once they graduate, try to go into a workforce in this country, either become accountants, or MBA, or engineering, or computer industry. I think their future working employment opportunity is kind of low in this country, though. So as far as job markets, this is very, very affected to our people though right now. Yeah.
Okay. And Tomasz?
My community is not very typical because we were in recession before this recession already. Why? Mostly because of European integration process. Polish people don't come over here to looking for work these days, and they basically leave this country to look for a better world, which is Europe for them.
So you're saying that the Poles have been leaving New York to go back to Poland?
And this is the process that started in 2004. But it's not a very recent process. And what we see right now is just a deepening of this problem. People are going, making decision about coming back to Poland, or they move away from jobs we were doing so far.
Okay. And so now, what kind of impact that would have in, let's say, Greenpoint or other Polish enclaves in New York?
There are many levels of that. Okay. First of all, Polish people, Polish businesses, small businesses are closing down, mostly because there are no immigrants, not enough immigrants to support their businesses. For example, I talked to many Polish contractors, and they are not hiring Poles anymore.
Okay.
They're looking for Latino workers because they don't. They cannot find workers on our ethnic market. There are not enough people to fill all jobs.
And that's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
Okay. Lloyd?
In terms of the minority small business community, it's kind of a multifaceted impact, and you can look at a number of different things. On one, the financing side, what's happening is you're finding more minority businesses turning to alternative sources of funding. It's always been kind of hard to get small business loans from the big money center banks, the Citibanks, the JP Morgan Chase. I mean, they've got great CRA ratings, Community Reinvestment Act ratings, and they win awards for the number of loans they give out, but they always give out smaller loans.
Such as, when you say small, give us an idea of
well, for example, most of the bigger banks, the JP Morgans, the HSBCs, they'll give a lot of loans in that 75,000, 50,000, sometimes 100,000 range. But some of the smaller banks, the Banco Populars or some of the others, they will give fewer loans, but the loans will be bigger. And the tightening of credit with the big money center banks is, causing a crimp to people who may already have a line of credit. People are tightening or shutting down those lines of credit. Another impact that you're seeing with the minority business community is on contracts. There's been a big push over the past 3, 4, 5 years for more minorities to get certified, become certified as a minority business, so they can do business with the city, the state, as well as corporations. And now what you have is, as government is putting a freeze on what they're doing or even cutting, you're also having corporations. I mean, in the past 2 weeks, we've had a whole ton of financial institutions either suddenly cease to exist or going under some other form, and they're severely cutting back. So what you're going to start to see are contracts getting frozen or cut or shrunk down, so there's going to be less contracting opportunities.
One second, let me ask Joe, because the Chinese community is very large. Are you having a similar effect on small businesses?
Exactly. I just want to calling he talks about that the credit system, credit ratings is from 600 points, 650 points up to
650 is not 650 is not cutting it anymore. It's got to be at least 720 or above now. So you need a much tighter, much higher credit rating.
And small businesses are having a difficulty
in terms of apply the loan, get the businesses started. So and other credit tracks, they're going to more enforce and scrutinize the whole things. So in terms of the small business, they try to apply for the loan. It's more difficult.
And Tomasz, what's going on with the Polish community and small businesses?
It's very similar to Chinese with few differences. First of all, the credit is tight, of course, but we got 2 huge credit unions, and one at least sitting on $1 billion, which didn't give any subprime, and they gave Alt-A mortgages with at least 20–25% of down payment. So they are not prone to this crisis, and they're sitting on cash right now. They are expanding their business lending programs, and the money is available. Of course, criteria are very tight right now to get the credit, but still there is the money. The problem is there are no businesses willing to take this money from in our community, because this community is actually shrinking, and that's a problem in my world.
We'll take a break and be right back.
Every time trees are destroyed to make paper, we lose something that can't be replaced.
You have the power to stop this.
Insist that the paper you buy is tree-free.
Insist on it.
Help us win the paper campaign.
Welcome back to Independent Sources. I'm talking with Lloyd Grant, Joe Way, and Tomasz Deptula about the economy and their communities. Tomasz, I understand that in the Polish community, a lot of these contractors you talked about are now de facto landlords because people can't afford to buy these houses anymore. How is that affecting the contracting business in the Polish community?
Basically, it's not exactly true because they don't own the houses. Basically, they are subcontractors. They are not big, very big firms who developing things, firms in hands of Polish people. They doing smaller jobs for big developers. So, but speaking of ownership, there's an interesting story going on in Greenpoint these days. Greenpoint was a part of Brooklyn saved by Poles, basically, and
basically it was a dilapidated neighborhood,
yes,
and then when the Poles came back and they revitalized.
Yes, and the credit union I mentioned before was started to give mortgages for those houses. Polish people renovated those houses, and when Poles began to move out from this place in the very beginning of the 2000s, young professionals from Manhattan started to move in, and those people are making very big, very nice money out of rental income. It has nothing to do with this crisis right now, these days. And
but is this getting worse now with this crisis? What do you
yes,
think?
of course it's getting worse because it's getting worse everywhere. But it's not as bad as it can be in other parts of New York. As I mentioned before, we are not a very typical ethnic community in this city at this very moment.
Okay.
At this very moment.
Well, that's a bit of good news for what?
Yeah.
And Joe, earlier you spoke about the fear of the H-1B visa with these layoffs imminent. Now, how widespread is this? Is this give us a sense of how deeply this is felt in the Chinese American and Asian community, for that matter?
Well, just for instance, the H-1B quota, annual quota for the whole United States is about 65,000.
And that's for all over the world.
For all over the world, though. So we're talking about this amount of people annually, though. Once you get the H-1 visa, then you can either support your family or you can start your own family or start your life right here. As a matter of fact, for most of the younger professionals you mentioned, though. And they're going to become a basic fabric of the community. In a sense, those people were settled down here. They were close to the Chinese community. They buy stuff. They pay the tax right here, though. So once those people leave this part of the community, then we sort of lose this kind of revenue in terms of whether they're going to bring in, though. So H-1 visa, and other than the economical substantial impacts, they also have the psychological impacts, though. And you mentioned that most of the Polish people, they went back to Poland, though. Same thing, because the economic boom in China right now, most people actually, they have a better reason to go back to China to start their own business there.
Give us a sense of how many people is this affecting in the Chinese American community?
Well, as far as the H-1 visa, then for the people who really, be employed in the financial community, I will give the number roughly 2,000 to 3,000 people, and exactly in the financial community. Okay. But in other places like in computer science, IT industry, and construction or engineering industry, I cannot give you the figure of there. So there's going to be a trickle down effects to that area in the next 1 to 2 years.
But it's a squeeze in every community, ethnic community these days, with H-1 visa problem and also a lack of legalization path to citizenship, what we call.
It just freeze the hiring.
Just to give you an idea how squeezed is that, I think the immigration office is accepting H-1 visa only for 2 or 3 days a year. It's in it's in April for 4 or 5 days, and they got about 300,000 of applications, and they make a lottery to give those visas. It's so squeezed, and it's also a very big hardship for employers, because if you are Microsoft or Yahoo or any other big company, you cannot bet on visa on the lottery win to get a new employee.
Lloyd, let's move it back to the small businesses, because in some ways this situation affects a lot of small businesses, because you have some of them are mom and pop, family owned, and they realize that on sponsoring people here, to help them run their businesses. What kind of impact do you think that would have?
There's a couple of things. One of the things that we're seeing is that with the spread of internet technology all around, people are starting to outsource and look at utilizing services and products, whether it's manufacturing from Chinese companies or software service from other Vietnamese or other Asian companies. With the smaller businesses, there's a trend to cut their cost by utilizing labor from all around the globe that could be at a lower price point than what you'll get here in the U.S.
Well, as you know, politics and economics intertwined, and this is a big election year, presidential election. What are you guys hearing from the candidates? What do you think about what they're saying about the economy, Obama and McCain?
Well, I think that both of them are very lacking in their small business, not only their dialogue on small business, but their actual policies. There's not a lot there. It's really kind of lip service. It's a throwaway line in both of their stump speeches in terms of what they will do for small businesses. Obama's is a little better in terms of he's looking to take care of healthcare costs. So if you can offer healthcare, then you can attract a better quality of workers for your business. So I mean, he's addressing those types of things, and some tax credits per employee. McCain simply says eliminate the capital gains tax, which
always the tax.
Well, capital gains it is very important and very crucial, but it's for much larger businesses.
Exactly, and it doesn't really affect small mom and pop.
Yeah, if you have a business that's doing less than 10 million,
okay,
you're not that concerned about. I mean, capital gains is an issue, but it's not as much an issue as if you're a $100 million, $500 million business.
And Joe?
We really haven't seen any details on this, though. I mean, talking about it, I mean, long terms we are really, optimistic to this country, but in the short terms, it's terrible, though, right? And whoever going to be the kind of president, we definitely have the tax increase. We're going to have a tax increase next year for the city, right? We got the property tax going to increase. So we have to find some way to cover all the mess right here. So then we are picking which one is going to increase tax more, or which one can manage the all expenses, though.
Tomasz, you have the last word?
I perfectly agree with you. I think the economy is a weak part of both candidates, and we don't hear any details from both of them, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, McCain doesn't understand the economy at all, and I think Obama has some good advisors around him, but he doesn't articulate a plan.
Joe Way, Lloyd Grant, and Tomasz Deptula, thanks for being with us. Now here's Abi Ishola with some other news.
Thanks, Gary. Here's a look at some stories from New York's ethnic media. From El Diario La Prensa, residents of Willets Point, Queens are protesting a controversial redevelopment plan. Activists say several business owners and residents will be pushed out if City Council approves the plan, yet there has been no talk of them receiving compensation. One New Jersey activist thinks no smoking laws in public buildings are only the beginning. From the Jersey City Reporter, Mahaley Bowles, who helps run a tobacco control community program in Jersey, is pushing for Hudson County to ban smoking in outdoor places like parks, shopping districts, and school grounds. The black community won't do business with Bank of America if one man can help it. Reverend Dennis Dillon of the Brooklyn Christian Center told Our Time Press that blacks should take their money out of the nation's leading commercial bank. He says such institutions perpetuate financial troubles and frequently turn down blacks who apply for loans. He thinks credit unions and savings and loans institutions will better serve the black community. Second-generation Korean professionals are the new target for luxury condos in New York and Jersey. Korean Times reports that this group prefers living closer to their offices in Manhattan or areas nearby. Realtors are marketing aggressively to the group, though condo sales have plunged within the last year. And finally, in India, a 16-year-old girl is dead after doomsday predictions drove her over the edge. News India Times reports that the teen committed suicide after local Indian media reported that a new scientific test that reenacts the Big Bang would cause the end of the world. Those are just a few headlines from New York's ethnic media. Back Back to you, Garry.
Thanks, Abi. For many ethnic newspapers, survival means finding a delicate balance between serving the community and rationing resources. Publishers want to reach as many subscribers as possible, but the cost of mailing newspapers takes a particular toll on ethnic publications. Michelle García reports on how a rise in postal rates could push small papers to the brink of ruin.
This is the New York City media capital most people know, and this newspaper is one of the players in that industry.
Plus, we have the Capitol Hill, and basically what is going on in White House, U.S. Senate, Congress.
Not quite an empire, but Thikana can claim a national reach.
Bangladeshi people live almost every state in the United States.
Really?
Including Hawaii and Alaska. Our reader is everywhere.
But Thikana, along with other small and medium-sized newspapers and magazines, are up against a huge challenge to get the news out to readers from the United States Postal Service.
But if I want to send one copy, single copy to Atlanta, it will cost me more than $5, and nobody wants to read a newspaper with $5.
That's because last year, the Postal Service restructured the way it charges publishers of magazines or newspapers to mail publications to their readers. The result? Huge increases for the small and medium-sized publications like Thikana.
It's about how more than $150 went up since a year.
Late last year, a congressional subcommittee convened a hearing to probe the impact of the new rules on small, independent, and diverse publications like Thikana.
In 2004, Time Warner once again submitted a rate proposal that many mailers believed shifted the burden of mailing cost onto small publications.
The new rules grant discounts to publishers who can deliver their magazines and papers to postal facilities near the destination, and discounts for bundling by zip code. Cost-cutting measures that save the Postal Service and big media companies money, but are out of reach for papers with smaller operations.
They are the only class of mail that pays nothing toward overhead cost. Under the new system, the new set of rates, they pay just barely cover attributable costs, and before that they did not cover attributable costs. And the law requires everyone to cover attributable costs.
Congressional members expressed concern about the costs to a free press.
So if these folks go out of business, is that a win-win?
Well, it would
if
not
these small publications go out of business, is it a win-win?
But that's a hypothetical.
No. I'm asking you a question. Is it a win-win if they go out of business?
Publishers find themselves balancing their money-making needs with their obligation to readers.
Why do you even bother sending them in the mail? Why do you even bother having subscribers?
Because people who live in remote area, they have to drive 30, 40, 50 miles to get a newspaper.
It's a quandary that gets to the stated mission of the Postal Service, to bind together the nation.
And George Washington, even at that time, proposed that the cost of postage be free, that in fact there were no cost for postage, because he wanted to make sure that political ideas could be spread to every person in the country who wanted them.
Last summer, publications from the far right to the left united under the banner to fight for a repeal of the postal rate increase.
Do you realize that there has been a huge campaign to try to fight back the postal rate increase? Were you aware that there was...
No, we didn't know anything about that. Nobody informed us.
For now, he's committed to delivering the paper to readers.
That's why we print newspaper to inform people they should be aware of what is about America.
For Independent Sources, I'm Michelle García.
We'll be right back.
There is really only one boy, one girl, one tree, one forest, one ocean, one mountain, one sky, and one simple way to care for it all. Please visit earthshare.org and learn how the world's leading environmental groups are working together under one name, EarthShare. One environment, one simple way to care for it.
We end our show with a profile of Abu Taher. The Bangladeshi journalist wears many hats at Bangla Patrika. He is executive editor, reporter, and even photographer. Banglapatrakar is one of 11 Bangladeshi papers listed by the New York Community Media Alliance. Its circulation of 15,000 also makes it one of the largest. Zyphus Lebrun tells us more.
Abu Taher's camera is always at the ready, a skill honed when he began his career in Bangladesh as a photojournalist.
Since my boyhood, I was very curious to know about this, journalism.
More than 25 years later, Taher finds the field still has its fascinations. One of his recent career highlights was covering the Democratic and Republican national conventions with other reporters from the ethnic media.
Barack Obama and Joe Biden will get it done.
Long before Denver and St. Paul, Taher was an established journalist in Bangladesh, working as a diplomatic correspondent for two of the largest national papers. Then, one story changed everything. After Operation Desert Storm, Saudi Arabia donated used U.S. weapons to Bangladesh. Taher's story revealed the U.S. was uncomfortable that the Saudis had not sought their permission before handing over the weapons. The local army took umbrage. Threats followed, and Taher fled to the U.S.
The democracy is not well established when I left Bangladesh. And then I thought might be as a reporter I can explore myself, my ideas, my writing, and my freedom, my wisdom, everything more than Bangladesh. To a country where, freedom, press freedom, personal freedom is secured by the Constitution.
Taher would meet two like-minded journalists in New York. They would launch Bangla Patrika and faced a whole new set of challenges, putting out their weekly paper with a 10-person staff.
It's really very stressful. And when I remember every Monday when the newspaper come out in the market, I feel like it's a joyous day for me because all the stress goes. And then after next day, you still have to start again. But the Monday is the day where I feel like, oh my goodness, I'm free. I'm a young guy again.
Though he jokes, Taher is very serious when he talks about Bangla Patrika's potential as an engine of boosting the Bangla community's participation in U.S. society. He's particularly interested in getting Bangladeshis to understand U.S. politics.
If we could focus mainstream politics along with the community other reporting, then the people would get a direction also and would be interested to get involved in the mainstream politics. Because if someone decided to stay in the United States, then they have to involve in the, in the politics of this country.
Which, he hopes, can translate into more active community leaders who can move on to greater exposure on the national stage.
If anyone would like to or have any kind of interest to work in the community or as a leader, they need the newspaper. This is the only weapon, this is the only vehicle, this is the only bridge they can build up.
A bridge he hopes to maintain as his social and spiritual responsibility. Because, as he says, quote, it's news, but it's also a message. Zyphus Lebrun, Independent Sources.
That's it for this episode of Independent Sources. Thanks for watching and join us again next week. In the meantime, be independent-minded.